Good morning. I want to welcome you. My name is Kenneth Ngwa. I am glad to be here on day 3 of this amazing program. I want to welcome everybody who is joining us here in person as well as online. So good morning, good afternoon, depending on your time zones. We are in for another wonderful day during this summit, and starting off this morning, we will have an amazing panel that will talk to us about the intersections of religion and global health. And I think it's one of the uniqueness of the Global Health Catalyst Summit to have this session. For the time that we have this morning, I want to just open up by making a few remarks, and then we will gradually introduce our speakers to come up to the podium and share some of the insights on the work that they do, and then we'll have a panel discussion afterwards. One of the really important quotes that I like, it goes something like this, that the 2 most important days in your life are the day that you were born and the day you found out why. And it is said that that saying, maybe Mark Twain said it. Other people think that it was Ernest Campbell, who was a Presbyterian pastor at Riverside Church in New York. And others attribute it to Anita Canfield, who wrote several books about self-worth, understanding the value of yourself and contributing to the world. And I think one of the things that has always impressed me and inspired me when I come to the Global Health Catalyst Summit is that the answer to that second question, the most important day is the day you were born, and then the next is the day you found out why, is that finding out why, that process of self-discovery, is not something that happens a single day. It's actually a commitment, it's a mission. And over time, we gradually find out why it is that we are on this planet, and for people of religion, why God has placed us in this space. So I am going to just share a few thoughts here. So what is religion and spirituality doing at the Global Health Summit? We want to think about religion as a catalyst for value-based personal and community care. And this is something that over the past 2 days, we have heard people talk about why they do the work they do. So this is important, obviously, for people who come to seek care, but also for those who offer care. Why is it that doctors and medical professionals commit themselves to going and serving people in every location? You have to have a motivation for that, and we saw some of that in the past 2 days. And so one of the things that we think is important is that religion is a catalyst for that kind of commitment, for that kind of value set commitment. Religion as a social determinant of health, religion as a contributor to holistic health, and we want to think about it holistic in terms of geographical space, but also in terms of just the subjectivity that we are human beings, we are body, mind, spirit, and to think about all of that together contributes to health and wellness. And you know, coming out of the pandemic and knowing what has happened to the world, we want to invite the question, what happens when you put the best of science and the best of religion together? What's the possibility? What's the possibility? So that's some of what we want to do in terms of framing. So this is very impressionistic, just as a way of thinking about what's the global landscape itself. The global landscape, you can see the world, there is religion everywhere. There is religion everywhere. it impacts people's lives in so many ways. By the numbers. These are some staggering numbers, and I imagine for people who like data, this is important data. People who say that religion plays an important part in how they understand their lives, how they understand the challenges they face, including health challenges. And so the question becomes, what is it that we need to know about this information? What is this data telling us about the kind of work that we want to commit ourselves to doing? Those are the numbers. And you can see it is quite impressive. And within each country, obviously there are internal dynamics, nuances to all these numbers. But it's critically important as we think about religion overall, to think about what these numbers tell us. And it is the case that sometimes within the same community, we have multiple religious traditions. Within the same family, you have multiple religious traditions, and they impact decision-making about health care, wellness, treatment, and so on. So these are important. So let me just move to some pointers. Faith-based organizations are an integral part of the global health infrastructure, a part of the global research agenda, collaboration, and partnership building. Religious institutions continue to constitute, to represent a significant portion of the health service infrastructure in many countries. In some countries, they make up to about 1/3 of the entire health services. So those of you who are able to read Gilles Olivier's piece in The Lancet following the commission in Ghana, one of the things that she talked about in her piece is precisely that in sub-Saharan Africa, you do have countries where religious institutions really do provide about 1/3. And a lot of times governments would provide training for general medicine. For specialization, you would need those religious institutions to sponsor that kind of research. So it is a fact that a lot of healthcare infrastructure around the world revolves around the work of religious institutions. And so we think that engaging the complex landscape of religious traditions and practices has relevance, not just for individuals, but also the question about the health of entire communities. In 2014, the entire issue of Forced Migration magazine was devoted to examining how faith can empower positive responses to displacement. So Forced magazine is talking about human displacement, and that entire issue was devoted to how faith communities can impact responses to that. 2015, the World Bank sponsored an initiative including a panel discussion in Washington, D.C. And the topic was the power of faith to help end extreme poverty. This is sponsored by the World Bank. And they actually had quite a goal, right, to eliminate extreme poverty by 2030. 2019, The Economist. It talks about there's a new scramble for Africa that is taking place. And according to The Economist, that if Africans position themselves well, they might actually come out benefiting from this scramble. They sort of present the chronology. There have been 2 scrambles. A third one is happening. It is not as spectacular as the other ones, but it is no less impactful. Just over a year ago, 2022, the World Economic Forum published what it identified as six key issues that would help shape the future of global health. As you can see from that list, there is health equity continues to be a major issue. Environmental and social and government strategies talks about mental health as an important piece, digital transformation, the rapid pace, the change of medical science and the costs associated with it, including discussions about how to produce renewable energy so that the medical procedures do not continue to consume a lot of the energy and lead to possible negative impact on climate. And then to reimagine public health itself. And so there is that quote right there, as you can see it. So I'm not going to go ahead and read it, but as you can see from that quote, the idea is inviting a reimagining of health. So let me just end with goals. We're hoping for knowledge sharing on the logistics of religion-infused community holistic health, developing models for local and global partnerships, commitments for multi-year plans of action, including we would soon hear about the C4 initiative, and funding opportunities working with BIPOC communities, Black, Indigenous people of color. So I am excited about this session, and we do have wonderful people who can help us think about all these things and more. And so I will, at this moment, invite Sharon Williams to come and sing and bring some of that spiritual and mental healing into this space in a song, There Is a Balm in Gilead. Let us welcome Sharon.
There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. Sometimes I feel discouraged, as if my work's in vain. But then the love of Jesus revives my soul again. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. If you can't preach like Peter, if you can't pray like Paul, you can tell the love of Jesus. Tell him how he died for all. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead can't preach like Peter, if you can't pray like Paul, you can tell the love of Jesus. Tell him how he died for all. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. Thank you.
Wasn't that wonderful? Yes, yes, yes. So we are going to proceed to listen to one of our first keynote speakers, Reverend Jochen Kirsch. I will invite him to come to the front and I will briefly introduce him. So, Jochen Kirsch has led Mission 21 as director since September 2019. Previously, he was the head of the International Relations Department at Mission 21, and from 2004 to September 2014, he held various positions in that department as team leader for Africa, program officer in Cameroon, Nigeria, and South Sudan, and thematic officer for HIV and the theological education. Most recently, Reverend Kirsch has also had responsibilities for the area of religion and development. Please let us welcome Reverend Kirsch.
Yeah, a very good morning or afternoon, wherever you hear and listen to us. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jochen Kirsch. Kirsch is German. In English, you would say cherry. So, in a way, I hope that with my presentation this morning, I can contribute to something like the cherry on the pie of this conference after 3 days, and I hope that you will enjoy it. Because I think that what I'm going to contribute is quite relevant to the subject, I'd like to share with you this morning some insights on the relationship between religion and development. Because I am absolutely convinced, after being engaged in development cooperation since almost 40 years, that without a well-reflected and professional inclusion of religious factors and religious actors in the so-called global south, I don't really like that term, but let's just use it for lack of a better one, you will not be able to achieve any larger and sustainable impact, neither in development cooperation in general, nor in the promotion of global health in particular. I only have something like 15 or 20 minutes for something that I could talk about for days. So I can only give you a small wrap-up this morning and an appetizer, a small cherry, to make you hungry for more. To make my point, I'm going to tap on the more than 200 years experience of Mission 21 which I'm serving as its director. Mission 21 is a worldwide fellowship of more than 70 churches and faith-based organizations for more than 200 years on 4 continents in Africa, Asia, Europe, and Latin America. And together we engage in more than 100 programs. In a triple nexus, we combine development cooperation with humanitarian action and with peace building to attain the SDGs in the areas of health, education, food sovereignty, peace, and economic empowerment. And most especially, we contribute to SDG 16+, the building of just, peaceful, and inclusive societies. From its beginnings, as part of the movement against the international slave trade and to empower people to rebuild their societies in justice and in peace, the relationship between religion and development is an integral part of Mission 21 of the more than 200 years of our history. For example, we have some Ghanaians here also, I think, the growing and production of cocoa in Ghana, which is today one of the world's biggest cocoa producers, goes back to the work of Mission 21, at the time called the Basel Mission. And right from the beginning of these 200 years, we have learned that these two entities, religion and development, are by no means fixed and stable, but they are both very dynamic. And they're engaging with each other in ways which can be very ambivalent. Religion can both strongly further, but also massively hinder development efforts. So over the past 200 years, we have learned that it takes a deliberate, systematic approach to guide those two dynamic powers towards a fruitful, synergetic interaction with each other. Given the limited time frame this morning, I would like to use the opportunity of my presentation to focus on the example of 2 aspects which I consider especially important in today's practice of international development cooperation. One is the role of religious factors, and the other the role of religious actors in development cooperation. Unfortunately, time would not permit me to go into more depth, or maybe for you, fortunately, there's not more time, because I could just drag on for hours. But rather than presenting and discussing with you the evidence and the examples themselves, my presentation will be more on kind of an evidence-based stating mode. And in the framework of this presentation, my aim is to sensitize you on the relevance of those 2 aspects and on possible ways in which, in my experience, have proven helpful to adequately operationalize those aspects in international development cooperation. In the societies of the so-called Global South, religion is part of the very texture of human life and society. It coins all concepts and the understanding of all aspects of our life. For example, the understanding of health and of illness. What is health? What is illness? Where do they come from? Religion coins questions about wealth and poverty. What is considered wealthy? What is poor? Religion coins ways in which we design our relationships, in which we manage our conflicts. Religion determines power structures, social, family orders, gender relationships. Religion determines the way in which I look at nature. I mean, yesterday we heard about phytomedicine. In sub-Saharan Africa, you wouldn't be able to just introduce phytomedicine like that, but you'd have to relate to the concepts of traditional beliefs, which we do, actually. But if I introduce Artemisia, Moringa, Blackstone, all kinds of different natural medicine to help people in rural areas to attain primary health care, I have to relate to their respective social and religious system. Otherwise, it will not work. Anyway, I'm already degrading. So my point is, everything is in one way or the other coined and filled by culture and by religion, as it's also reflected, I've brought it here, in the Ghanaian Adinkra symbol of the Jinyame. You see it there on the left bottom. Jinyame meaning God is everywhere, God surrounds and God permeates everything. And so to work as a professional in development cooperation means that we have to be aware of this fact that religion plays a crucial role in the lives and in the societies of our so-called beneficiaries. And therefore religion also has a great influence in our development efforts in general and on our healthcare systems in particular. The reason why many, as not only but especially secular actors in development cooperation, tend to ignore religious factors and actors in development cooperation is, in my observation, that they realize the ambivalent role that religion can play, and that they are afraid that if they would include it, they would appear unprofessional, and maybe religion might become a source of conflict and division. I mean, yesterday I learned a new word, oncopsychology. And the lady who introduced it yesterday evening was very impressive. She talked about oncopsychology in Niger. But how can you do oncopsychology in Niger and dealing with trauma without relating to the belief systems of the people, especially the women you deal with? But she made no mention of it. Maybe because it might have appeared to you secular people as something unprofessional. But my point is that it is correct that religion might pose a source of conflict, but it would be unprofessional to make that the reason to exclude it. I'm convinced that exactly the strong and ambivalent role that religion does play in all development efforts is the very reason why I think that from a professional point of view, irrespective of our own particular worldview, you cannot afford to ignore religious factors in development cooperation, but that you have to consciously and purposefully include them in your complete program cycle management. Interestingly, I found out that there are not many tools available that can, in an easy and systematic way, help you to do this kind of professional reflection process. So eventually I decided to develop one myself some 10 years ago, which is now being used especially by Swiss faith-based organizations. It basically follows the three-step module of conflict-sensitive program management while looking at each of the 4 levels of impact. I don't have the time here to go on this, but I will be happy to answer questions, and also the link is included in my abstract. So, to keep in time, I summarize this first part of my presentation. We have seen, whether you like it or not, religion does play a major role in societies of the so-called Global South, and therefore also in the development of those societies, for better or for worse. And so we have also seen whether wherever you do take these religious factors systematically into account in your program management, you ensure a high sense of local ownership with a large and sustainable impact. As a consequence, churches and other faith-based organizations are important, if not the most important, actors in development cooperation in the so-called Global South, for example, in the provision of healthcare and education. In my experience, this is especially true in rural areas where there are hardly any economic incentives to run a hospital or a school. Here, where most people live, healthcare and education cannot really earn you any big money, but the only motivation to actually run a school or a clinic here is the urge to get involved in what a church would call diaconical work. The same goes for countries in conflict, by the way. while government infrastructure, if there is any at all, is usually the first one to drop out in a conflict. The church facilities like schools and hospitals, they are usually the last ones to close down before or during the conflict, and they are the first ones to reopen again. For further reading, I would strongly recommend you a very interesting article in The Lancet some years ago, which I've also included in my abstracts. The fact that religious factors and religious actors play a major role in the development of societies in the so-called Global South, however, does not automatically imply in which way religion is being used and which direction this development actually takes. As such, with regard to the development of a society, religion can be used in many different ways, and I just give you a few examples. In Nigeria, for example, we have here a picture from Nigeria. Religion can be instrumentalized to actually cover up, or if they can be used as something like a fire accelerant to mobilize people in the name of religion for what is in fact a predominantly political or economical agenda. You have the Boko Haram in Nigeria, for example. Or at other times, religion might be used as an excuse to justify present situations of injustice and inequality, and therefore block possible interventions of development cooperation. From this point of view, especially in the context of the Christian neo-Pentecostal movement and what we call the prosperity gospel, poverty and inequity are portrayed as results of, let me call it that way, you didn't pray enough or you didn't pay enough. And at the core of this kind of theology, illness and social injustice are understood as being sent by God as punishment and as something like pedagogical measures, quote unquote, to bring you back to the right faith. If you believe rightly, if you pray hard, if you live the right life, you will be rewarded with health and prosperity. In other traditions, and this is also what we as International Fellowship of Mission 21 stand for, religion is used as a resource for social change and sustainable development. The way in which we understand our Christian faith is that we are called to what the Bible calls the salt of the earth. As churches and faith-based organizations, we see ourselves in the responsibility to make a difference. We do not look at the world in impartiality, regarding prosperity as a reward and suffering as a punishment from God. Instead, we are partial. We side with those who are suffering, and we work together on eye level with like-minded people of other faiths, of other worldviews, in order to bring about real and sustainable social change and development. The two Nobel Prize winners, the Dr. Mukwege, which you as people concerned in health might know, and the Dalai Lama, explicitly endorse this approach of Mission 21. And as I mentioned before, unfortunately, there is not enough time to get deeper into the study of concrete examples, so I have to remain on the level of merely stating our learnings in all brevity. But for us as Mission 21, it has proven that one very crucial instrument for the capacity building of religious actors in development cooperation, and you might be surprised to hear that, is the deliberate furtherance of theological education. Both theological education, both of the so-called professionals, the pastors or whatever in any religious organization. We are also furthering study university in Jakarta, also, in Banjarmasin in Indonesia. So we further education both of the professional actors in religious organizations and of the so-called laity. So people with all walks from life and from all different professional backgrounds. In our various national and continental cooperation programs of Mission 21, we can clearly observe how religious actors in respective societies turn into extremely powerful and sustainable actors of change when those respective modules of theological education turn their burning issues in a society like public health, like food security, like gender justice, corruption, climate change, and environmental protection from external phenomena that you read in the newspapers, you hear on the radio, and that you just have to take for granted. Theological education is turning those burning issues into central tasks and issues of the church as an expression of their faith. So when, for example, in northern Nigeria, is this one here, climate change is not something that I have to accept as a fact, but it is actually something that I have a role to play as a Christian because I have a task, I have a responsibility to care for creation. Then it is not something I'm just taking for granted, but it's something that ignites initiatives. Like the women here, they start to build energy efficient cooking stoves, reducing the use of firewood. And they engage in waste management, in tree planting, etc. Is not something that it's because it's funny or sexy or it's being paid for or whatever, but because it is part of our faith, it's our mission as a church, and that's why we engage in it. And you do that through theological education, you get those churches, those faith-based actors involved. And we can clearly see how through their huge social capital, churches and other religious organizations in the so-called Global South have the potential to reach far into society, even beyond their own membership, how those organizations are able to enter into a purposeful dialogue and cooperation with other religious and private or state actors, and how they are able to create sustainable changes in the awareness and in the behavior of the population as a source and as a catalyst for development and social change. So we may conclude, and I come to the beginning of my presentation, because for people, especially in countries of the so-called Global South, religion is part of the very texture of their societies and their lives. It is important that the religion on the one side and development on the other are professionally correlated and involved in a critical, constructive dialogue with each other. Wherever this happens, spiritual and worldly engagement actually become two sides of the same medal, enabling a high sense of local ownership in international development with a large and sustainable impact. Thank you very much for your attention.
Do we have the video? No. Okay. So at this time, we will invite the Reverend Dr. Festus Asana to make some remarks. Dr. Asana is Moderator Emeritus of the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon and has done a lot of work around the world with the World Council of Churches. He's someone who brings passion and wisdom to this kind of work, having been on the ground doing a lot of the work that Jochen just mentioned. So let us welcome Dr. Asana.
Over the years, I've noticed that the bottom line of Global Health Catalyst Summit is collaboration. And that is mainly what Reverend Kirsch has been talking about. There can be no development without collaboration. You cannot build in a scattered form. You must collaborate. Architect and builder and the owner of a project who wants to see it the way it should be. So the director of Mission 21 has addressed this issue of development which comes with collaboration. Collaboration of his organization, Mission 21, has gone on for over 200 years and produced great results around the world. In China, in India, in South and Central America, in Cameroon, in Nigeria, in Ghana. It resulted in pioneering work in education, health, rural development, even before the states of these different areas came into education and health. It is the churches that laid the foundation. I see collaboration exhibited here at the summit, thus fulfilling the vision of Professor Wilfred Ngwa. I wonder if he even saw the magnitude of what that vision was going to take from the witness of what we see in the different summits. Now we are incorporating the role of religion. Maybe at the beginning we talked about health, education, science, but we see that we cannot leave out religion. Different organizations have shared because we cannot be an island. And as someone mentioned yesterday, we cannot continue to reinvent the wheel when it's already there. We continue from where the wheel was invented. We have learned from each other, no matter our background, no matter what we possess. Each of us has limits. Each of our organizations has limits. And those limits are complemented by sharing, giving, and receiving. We will continue to learn from each other. I mentioned the case of some Cameroon doctors in Germany collaborating with the Baptist Health Services in Cameroon through the Mbingo Hospital. Great results have been achieved. One of those doctors in Germany is Dr. Rebecca, who comes from Germany and who has been here at this summit. Reverend Kirsch is an example of Mission 21 also, who has had collaboration with the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon. And we can name other areas. Locally and globally, the right path to follow is that of collaboration, whatever we do. And I saw this theme ringing through all the lectures, all the sharing. And we continue to recognize that we cannot be alone. Has the African wise saying not said it all and put it very appropriately? It states, if you want to walk fast, go alone. And of course, when you go alone, you may never arrive. In the United States, people talk of the lone cowboy riding to the west. I don't know how he would even survive. If you want to go far, walk together. If you want to walk fast, go alone. If you want to go far, walk together. That is a principle which dictates to us that in whatever journey we undertake, we need collaboration. In religion, in science. Have we not seen it even in the summit? That from various parts of the world, people have presented things here which show that they need the cooperation of other people. And even where some people have already invented something which is used, we still need to learn. Even if it's the invention of a medication, it is not the issue of reinventing the wheel if someone has to make research and discover another treatment. We need each other. Why are there wars and conflicts? Because we try to be alone and fight for ourselves. But if we cooperated, the world would be a wonderful place. A young man went home and told his old mother in the village that the doctor has declared that because of the outbreak of cholera, people should boil their drinking water. The old mother responded, if it were true, our pastor would have said it and announced it in church. You see the understanding here. The church and the doctors and the science must cooperate. In fact, in Cameroon, most useful information is transmitted through the worshiping communities, in the mosque, in the church, and other places of worship. They trust their religious leaders more than the political leaders because they are with the people. If it were true, our pastor would have announced it in church. We need collaboration between church and medics. There is a doctor in Cameroon, I think he passed away, who studied in the West, very knowledgeable. And he was involved in the training of medical doctors Western style. In fact, he later became the dean of our medical school in Cameroon. But he began to seek to collaborate with his old father, who was a herbalist. The herbalist is what we also call a native doctor who treats using leaves and grasses and other natural herbs. He now sought information from his old father to complement his Western knowledge of treating people. He knew that there were certain illnesses the hospital could not treat or identify. So he benefited from what his father's herbs could do and what his Western training could do. In fact, recently, I've realized that we are bombarded on social media by information on how to use this or that leaf to treat this or that disease. It's not primitivity. When our sister sang here about a balm in Gilead, it was related to that. God has created the leaves. By the way, recently I saw that an American has transformed bitter leaves into tablets. As a Cameroonian who knows how to plant bitter leaf, harvest, and eat with soup, I don't need to spend my money to buy bitter leaf tablets. I eat the bitter leaves. They are more original, they are more curative, they have no side effects. We need the cooperation. I am not condemning what the inventor has done, because in the US, where snow is in most parts, bitter leaves will not grow. So he has made it easier for some people. For some of us, when we go to places, one of the first things we do is to plant bitter leaves. It's a wonderful vegetable, but it is also curative, I believe. Some years ago, Newsweek magazine published an article on the issue of unforgiveness. And it stated that unforgiveness can cause disease, sickness. So the scientists in the US, I believe, now concluded that unforgiveness is a sickness. Christianity has always seen it as a sin. You cannot vow not to forgive your brother or sister, and yet you say you worship God. I will give a short testimony on that. When my family and I were here in the 80s, my wife and I were studying, and one day I was driving to school very fast because I was late. I was hit from the back by a heavier car because I stopped abruptly when another car drove into the avenue. I had a dislocation and I had to go to physical therapy. Naive as I was, I came to an agreement with the lady who hit me, and she gave me a phone number and said, "My husband will repair your car." I believed her. When I called the number afterwards, I realized that it was a taxi company. I became bitter. angry. And that anger almost brought a wound in my heart. Because each time I thought about it, I was more angry. The anger of the pain of the heart became worse than the pain of the back. One day I knelt in front of my bed and I said one of the shortest prayers in my life. God, help me to forgive this lady. Instantly, the pain in my heart disappeared till today. I still remember the event, but the pain is no longer there. Occasionally, that pain on the back comes, but it's a non-event for me now. Forgiveness is a wonderful cure. Unforgiveness is a horrible disease and a sin. Doctors treat symptoms sometimes. And when the source of the illness is not known, I think they state that it is osteology. I may be wrong in the pronunciation. Osteology, that is, the cause of the illness is not known. But all illnesses have causes. Doctors and clergy need cross-references. The clergy have referred people to medical doctors. Medical doctors have referred people to the clergy. That is collaboration. Though retired, in my advisory role to clergy and faith communities in Cameroon, I will continue both locally and globally to play a role in bringing that cooperation between religion and science. They are not enemies. Someone said it yesterday. Before I came to this summit, I just returned from Geneva, the headquarters of the World Council of Churches, where I was invited to participate in a permanent committee on consensus and collaboration, just to show how collaboration takes a front role in any organization, whether church or secular. I will continue to be an advocate for faith and community collaboration, for healing and social services. I applaud all those who are here for choosing the path of collaboration for global health. Thank you very much.
Let us all give Reverend Dr. Asana another round of applause for that presentation. Thank you so much. So at this point, we will continue with our program, and we will invite Reverend Vanessa Wilson and Labenyimo Patrick to come and present on an initiative that is quite exciting. So briefly, as they come forward, Reverend Vanessa Wilson is a lead pastor of the Church of the Good Shepherd in Willingboro, New Jersey. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Urban Planning and Community Development from Rutgers University, a Juris Doctorate from Rutgers Law School, a Master's of Business Administration from Rutgers Business School. She loves Rutgers. And a Master's of Divinity from Drew Theological School with a focus on Africana spirituality. She is also the founder and president of Sikona Inc., a non-profit organization working for the elimination of healthcare disparities and advancing integrative healthcare solutions. It's a brief summary. She's done quite a lot, but just for the sake of time, I want to abbreviate. Labenimo is graduating from Drew Theological School this year, MDiv, yes. And he has a background in biology and has studied in Zimbabwe, and I am excited to say that he is going to continue to do his work in the field of science. And so here is a case of someone who is putting the two disciplines together, science and spirituality. So both of them have an exciting presentation. Let me get out of the way so they can actually present.
Greetings wherever you are. God bless you, and I'm glad to be here this morning. Thank you so much, Dr. Ngwa, for the introduction, and thank all of you for being here, and thank you, Dr. Will, for this catalyst. This morning we have heard from two prominent pastors and leaders, and they have given us a context for what I'm going to say, and it's just wonderful how the plan comes together. So what I'm going to do is actually show you what we're doing in the community here in the U.S. around religion and health. As Dr. Ngwa has said, over the years I've done many, many things. I have worked in higher education. I have many degrees. I like education. I have worked for government. I have worked in the private sector. But there has been one thing that has followed me all of these years. As many years ago, when I started Rutgers Law School, and yes, I love Rutgers. Amen. I know I'm in a different territory. I'm in somebody else's house, but I got to shout out to Rutgers. But when I started law school, there was a professor there who was a leading constitutional lawyer, Arthur Kanoy. And he said, if you want to be successful, immerse yourself in the law. Immerse yourself in the law. So no matter whether leading institutions or going back to school, practicing law, any of the things that I engaged in, I immersed myself in it. And this theme of immersion is critical for those of us who want to do global health. And I'm talking about global health as local health. But this marriage of spirituality, science, and healing needs a immersion. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and why I think this is so important. Did I go too far? Why I think this is so important. Now, why won't it? Okay. I am a breast cancer survivor. And I believe the reason I survived at the stage that they found the cancer is because I had an excellent medical team. Excellent. But I also had a tremendous faith in God and a praying community. So how did I get here? How did I get to this church? When I had the bout with cancer, I said I needed to step away for a while. and to reflect on what was going on in my life. And Dr. Hassana, in my tradition, we shout. I thought I was going to shout this morning when you started talking about forgiveness. And you know, for the shouting people, for the amen people, you were preaching this morning. And I had to take some time and see what those areas in my life were that had led to cancer, other than living in New Jersey. And during that time, in prayer, working through my own forgiveness path, the district superintendent in our denomination reached out and said, would you take a church in Willingboro, New Jersey? And I initially said no. I don't want to do that. I am recovering from cancer. I need to hear God. And he said, I want you to think about it, because you have the skill set that's necessary to do what they need. And I didn't read their strategic plan. I didn't want to hear it, but I went into prayer. And the answer was, go to Willingboro. Because if you serve God, and I'm clearly the religious part, but if you serve God, you will go where you are called. And healthcare, science, it's a calling. Religion, it's a calling. And so I ended up being the pastor of the Church of the Good Shepherd in Willingboro, New Jersey, at the start of the pandemic. I went into a church where I had not seen the people and could not see the people and would not see them in person for many months. In that space, I said it was critical for me to understand who these people were. And one of the things they said to me early on is that they want to do healthcare, they want to be relevant, they want to change. And so at that point, it became critical for me to understand, is the organization itself healthy? We talk a lot about healthy people and healthy bodies, but my background as a consultant said, let's look at this organization and see if the organization itself is actually healthy. So there's a quote, and you can see it with a healthy organization is an organization that's able to cope with change and still continue to perform. I needed to understand whether the organization could cope with change, because in the midst of the pandemic, the world was changing. So organizational health is critical for people who want to engage in these type of collaborations, because if you're not healthy, if the organization is not healthy, you can't engage effectively. So praise God, I had a healthy church and a healthy organization, and we could cope with change. So I'm going to tell you some of the things that we did to build to the environment where we can engage in something as exciting as the C4, because you just can't do it overnight, right? You have to build that organization, build the infrastructure, and build your team. So a healthy church, and there are all these factors here, and I'm only going to talk about one or two, is the outward-looking focus, seeking what God wants, and to operate as a community. And that operating as a community includes collaborative efforts. You can't do it alone. No one can do it alone. And there are a lot of pictures there, pictures worth 1,000 words. So for every word that I don't see, the pictures making up those 1,000 words for me. What do you see? When you look at this image, what do you see? Some of us see arrows going out. Some of us see arrows coming in. Some of us just see the flower in the middle. Some of us may see something else. But when we engage in this type of healthcare, this critical work, we must see the big picture. And that's why we need many eyes, right? Because the organization has to be outward bound, but at the same time, it has to be looking inward to build the infrastructure so that we can engage in a collaborative manner. Because remember, when we bring our organization to the table, we want to bring a healthy organization to the table. The great thing about the Church of Good Shepherd is in 2017, in their earlier strategic plan, they said they want to be known as the health care church in the community. That made my life easy, right? And that's the marriage made in heaven. glad I answered the call because clearly I want to do healthcare. With all of the degrees I have, I'm now finishing a doctorate in medical and health humanities. So this, oh, don't applaud, just please don't do that, please don't do that. Pray, don't applaud. And Dr. Kenneth Ngwa, I think he got me into this, so I don't know. I don't know if I love you yet or not. It's a good thing. So anyway, so we went through this whole series of assessments, and you see the tools and the blue box that we used. And of course, you can see the slides later, but we actually did internal assessments and external assessments so that we would know if we could actually engage in a healthy and fruitful way. In the midst of the pandemic, and we talked about that critical need, we had to repurpose our church. We had a huge building that was empty. So we repurposed the facility so that we could have clinics for shots, so that we could do COVID testing, so that we could provide the community with everything that they needed at a time that they couldn't come out. We turned Bible study, I turned it into computer lessons so that the people in our congregation could access what they needed during that time. These are all of the steps that we're now taking to build the strong church that we can now engage the way we need to engage. The mission and ministry of our church is motivated because we are Christians, right? We do what we do because we believe that this is what God has called us to do. So based on scripture, Matthew 25, we engage in these areas: hunger, thirsty, stranger, clothes, sick, prison. And these are things that Jesus says, did you do these things? When you do these things, you've done for the least of these, you've done it for me. So that's how we focus. And if you look carefully, and if you understand the social determinants of health, you see the social determinants of health. So this is foundational to the work that we do. I'm going to share with you how two of our members feel about our health ministry and give you their perspective, because I could tell you it's grand and great because that's what I'm supposed to do. But I want you to hear from them. This is something that we videoed almost a year and a half ago, and we've progressed much further than that.
Greetings. My name is Sister Loretta Battis. I'm the chairperson of Look Up and Live ministry at the Church of the Good Shepherd in Willingboro, New Jersey. Pastor Vanessa Wilson spoke these 3 words that changed the direction of the health ministry. Health is wealth. Look Up and Live ministry focus on taking better care of our bodies and minds as well as our spirit. Our ministry addresses health disparities in our community. Look Up and Live ministry provides weekly information and resources for healthy living. Remember, health is wealth. Healthy disciples attract and produce healthy disciples. So let's all look up and live. Amen.
Hello, my name is Patricia Love, and I am the lay leader at the Church of the Good Shepherd in Willingboro, New Jersey. I am also a colorectal cancer survivor. 19 months ago, Pastor Vanessa Wilson came to the Church of the Good Shepherd as our lead pastor. Because of her, we have connected with Doctors Will and Kenneth Ngwa and the Religion and Global Health Forum. This has given us a wider platform to share our Look Up and Live ministry with the local community and beyond. This year, we conducted COVID testing and vaccine clinics, men's awareness focusing on prostate and colorectal cancers, Ready Kids Emergency Disaster Preparedness class. We're excited that our ministry can meet the needs of the community. We look forward to upcoming events. Look up and live.
Within our context, there were so many health issues, And you saw earlier the slide with the number of assessments that were there. We actually did assessments. We looked at reports from the state, the data from the state. We looked at data in our church. We looked at data in our community to determine what we were going to focus on. Of course, the pandemic mandated that we focus on COVID. But the next presenting issue, and Patrick is going to talk a lot about that, the data from our congregation, was cancer. So when you hear a lot of our people speak, including me, they talk about cancer. We talk about cancer. Our church is located in Burlington County in New Jersey. Burlington County has the 3rd highest cancer incidence in the state of New Jersey. New Jersey has the 8th highest cancer incidence in the nation. So living in Burlington County, you're likely to get cancer. So cancer is a problem, and that's a much bigger problem than we're addressing at this time. But I want you to look at the number of people that we've brought in to collaborate over the years, since 2020, so that we could deliver effective health and healthcare in our community. And one of our long-term collaborators have been the Naguas. Of course, Dr. Kenneth Nagua was my professor with the Religion and Global Health Forum, and Dr. Will Nagua came in with us with the Global Health Catalyst Summit, which we've been proud to be a part of. But over the years, we brought in collaborators to do our men's health breakfast, the women's breakfast, a number of other programs that we've done, and Dr. Will Nagua, the Global Health Catalyst, has provided doctors for us. And this was an excellent platform because initially, because of COVID, we couldn't bring the doctors on site. So we've been able to really develop technology and the use of technology, which now leads us to this exciting new place. And here you see other things that we've done at the church, and I'll be happy to answer more questions at a later date if you want more detail, but I want to honor the time. So I'm going to ask Labanyimo to join me and start to talk about the data that has led to this great project that we're starting, the C4 initiative. Labanyimo, are you there?
Thank you, Reverend Vanessa. Thank you, Reverend Vanessa, for such a wonderful presentation. I am Labanyimo Patrick, the program coordinator for the C4 initiative. It's hard for me to come after someone who just spoke eloquently. I'm originally from Nigeria, and I have a background in medical laboratory sciences, now theology, and also hoping to go into computational biology and integrative biology. So with the C4 initiative, we know that Reverend Vanessa has already ongoing work at her church. And so how do we bring together different aspects of society that are already doing work around health so that we can catalyze on those work that they are doing? And so what you see in the diagram is a C4 axis. And what that C4 axis is a place where we can bring together all the other components of what you see on the diagram. So what you see there is medical researchers, that is one of the components. Community, that is the greater Willingboro area in New Jersey. And then you have the church and the pastor, who is Reverend Vanessa, and the Church of the Good Shepherd. And then we also have seminary and educators, medical researchers for us in this initiative. The research organization we'll be working with is the Global Health Institute at Rutgers University. What is the C4? The C4 is a comprehensive cancer center in the cloud. This is a work that Dr. Will Ngwa is doing. And so the platform is designed to leverage health information technology, integrating network, comprehensive cancer centers with churches serving as the hub for that. Now, what we wanted to do was, we don't want to go into the Church of the Good Shepherd and assume that we know what they really wanted. Even though we knew that they had challenges, they had a ministry that was ongoing, we thought perhaps we could do preliminary studies So we designed a survey with the team to go in and ask them what are some of the challenges that our initiative can help us with. So I have this information on a poster. If you want to see it, you can meet me after my presentation. And so the goal is for us to assess some of the problems and design an intervention that can meet some of these problems so that we can help reduce health disparity and improve health care access in Greater Willingboro, New Jersey. So the next slide will be a graph. So we surveyed the church, members of the Church of the Good Shepherd, and asking them what are some of the challenges for healthcare access in that community, in that church. And so from this graph, you'd see a representation of some of the barriers, the perceived barriers that stood out. It was a lot of variables that we gave them to select from. And so the standout variable there you can see is race and ethnicity. The Church of the Good Shepherd is a Black and an African-American church. And so you see race and ethnicity standing out tall on the bar chart. And then you can also see economics and income. And we also have geography as the three that stood out in terms of what are the key barriers to healthcare access within the community. And so the other factors are also very important, but pretty much the three that stood out on this graph is race, economics, and geography. And then the next survey, part of what we wanted to share with you was what are some of the most challenging or most important health problems within the Church of the Good Shepherd community. And so, again, it was a list of variables that we gave them to select from. And the ones that stood out, we had high blood pressure, which stands at 25.6% of our respondents. And then we had aging problems and cancer actually standing on second, tied. And you also have other problems and issues as represented by the graph you see over there. Another important thing we looked at in our survey was how does race impact health? And so we got a lot of responses on this one, and I picked up a few just to represent it on a pie chart. And so we had systemic racism was a perceived problem when it comes to race and health. And we had racial prejudice, misdiagnosis. And another thing that came up from the survey was the fact that pain was not given serious consideration. Something that I didn't put on the slide was when we surveyed our respondents and asked them how important is faith to their health. 80% of our respondents said that faith was very important to their health. And so, to conclude, this is not new information. We know that Black, African American people have higher death rates than all other ethnic groups for many, although not all forms of cancer. And even people with higher socioeconomic status tend to have problem with mistrust of the healthcare system. On our survey, we actually noted that a lot of the people we surveyed had higher income. They had high income as well as a good medical insurance or some form of coverage. And so our initiative, the goal is to bring healthcare to ethnic minority communities, collaborating with churches, collaborating with medical researchers, collaborating with seminary, and oftentimes if we need to refer them, we will be able to refer them through creating churches, healthy hubs within the churches. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. We're so excited for the intern. I just wanted to go over something. In my haste, I didn't, thank you. In my haste, I didn't give enough context, and I do want to give that context so that you will understand. The Church of the Good Shepherd is a church that we call an Africana church. We are African American. We have members from multiple countries on the continent of Africa, including Ghana, Liberia, Nigeria. We also have members of our congregation who are Caribbean and South American. We are all black-skinned. We do not all have the same culture or context. So when we look at these numbers, especially the data around race, it's not only that people are threatened or not trusting of healthcare, it's how healthcare practitioners react when they see a black face. And it doesn't matter where that black face is from when they go into a doctor's office. And that is a common thread throughout our congregation. So I want you to understand that context, and I didn't give it earlier because I wanted to be respectful of time, but I think it is so critical. And so I want to say thank you to Labinyimo for doing this, and thank you so much, Dr. Ngwa.
Thank you so much. That is really wonderful work where the religious leaders collaborating with scientists, churches working as health hubs. This is exciting. Let us continue with our program right now, and we want to invite Stanley Strouder to come to the front and share some thoughts with us on the work that he's already doing. We know. See in the room? Okay, went out for just a moment, so he'll be back. Do we have the presentation, Oni Richards? Yes, okay. Okay. Let us welcome the Honorable Stanley Strouder, who is a Africa Town, and so many more things that he's done. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Let me thank the earlier presenters, and I guess in some way I'm just going to repeat what they've done and congratulate them, because it's people like you and all of you here that make my work easy. I'm not a medical practitioner, and as I said last night, I'm probably one of those people that the late Congressman John Lewis said is a troublemaker, a good trouble. I just go and raise hell, and the doctors come, the lawyers come, and they're there. But let me begin by also mentioning, before we get to Africa Town, there was a series, years and years of work and development in our community and in the greater Philadelphia area. And that organization evolved out of, you met Councilwoman Janie Blackwell. She is the former council person for this area for over 25 years, which is Councilmatic District 3, where you are, Penn and Drexel in these areas. And she created, over 20 years ago, a commission called the Mayor's Commission on African and Caribbean Immigrant Affairs for the city of Philadelphia. It's an opportunity to bring about the kind of things our collaborators here talked about: collaboration and cooperation. First of all, collaboration and cooperation from all of the many African and Caribbean people in our city. We have now about 120,000 African and Caribbean immigrants from neighborhood, about 35 different African and Caribbean countries in Philadelphia. We have one of the most rich and diverse cultural areas in the United States of America. And the commission is a standing reason why we have that here. It's really an upstanding organization that brings together our community. We meet once a month with the commission members, and we have outreach methods to reach out, and we attempt to help the organizations build capacity. In fact, most recently, we have about a $400,000 fund where we're helping to build capacity inside the organization, not the commission. We can raise the money and trip to work with people, but the idea is to help build capacity. So in the Cameroon community, you may have seen recently, they're building a Cameroon Cultural Center. The Sudanese community not too far from here brought a building 15 years ago. They've invested $1 million in the building. It's right at 58th and Baltimore. If it was a good day, you can walk there, but it's a beautiful opportunity. The Ethiopian community at 71st and Woodland, not too far from here, has bought a church. They've already been here, been organized for over 30-some years, but they bought a church and we're helping them build the Ethiopian Museum there at 31st and Woodland. The Caribbean community, we have several organizations. One, you might be aware of the Caribbean Festival, where we've come together, and each year for the last 30-some years, we have a huge festival at Penn's Landing, one of our outdoor theaters. And on and on and on and on. We heard last night, we have a Dune Day. I'm on the board of a Dune Day. We're in our 48th year of the largest African American cultural festival in the United States. It's right. This whole area will be crowded. Over 500,000 people will be here from around the world. So that's the kind of work that the Mayor's Commission has done as we continue to move forward. I wanted to take a side out and talk about the healthcare for a moment, because it's out of this type of organization and collaboration, not easy, but we've been able to develop and build a really strong network of healthcare providers within these organizations. The Ethiopian community, we have a mental health program, we have cancer programs. One of our sisters who's not here, is Uni here? Will, did Uni get here? Okay, good. I won't speak about her. I'll just say that Ms. Uni Whitey Richards, she's the executive director of the African Family Health Organizations, has done a beautiful job in helping bring us together in healthcare. We also have Dr. Camille Reagan, who has organized something called AC3, the African Caribbean Cancer Consortium. Many years ago, she got together with the commission and many other people in the city and brought us together to talk about cancer in the African Caribbean immigrant community. And she's been doing that all over the world. So we have been doing very well, and I hope Uni's here to share more information with that on you. With that thing. One of the other important things that out of the commission before I talk to Africatown is the need for us to come work together and demonstrate the opportunity for African, Caribbean, Black professionals to work together, provide the care. And this has not just been new with COVID-19. It goes back to HIV/AIDS, it goes back to Ebola, it goes back to SARS, and now COVID-19. I mean, we had to fight for the right to serve our own community. You may have heard about the horrible situation in Philadelphia where Black medical professionals, Black doctors have come together and to volunteer in the church groups and the communities to help provide care in our community of COVID. And one guy, young guy, white guy, no experience in healthcare at all, and even given shots, received millions of dollars to open up a shop at the convention center to provide care. And thanks to Mrs. Blackwell and Fowl and many of the people in our organizations talked about here, we got together, we went to city council as a group. We cooperated and had a collaboration around our organizations that have not only capacity, interest, and ability to provide this healthcare outreach, the testing, and the shots themselves. We were very successful doing that, but that was only one of many things. We're still fighting around this thing called capacity. It's a big issue in our community because church groups, our community organizations, suffer with nothing, no resources, but as soon as the resources come down the table, we don't have capacity or capability to provide the service we've been doing for free all the time. And so that's something I have to continue to fight for all of us, and all of you I know work hard for that, so I want to congratulate for that in that area because we still have to work hard. And it's a good opportunity that now as we learn more about the need for long-term medical care and COVID and long-term COVID, it's going to get more and more need in that. So I want to encourage you to continue fighting in those areas. Let me go quickly to Africatown. Africatown is a result of all this work and years of struggle that all of you have been engaged in. And I saw my good friend Megan out there. Megan is here from the Office of Global Health at Penn, and I wanted to point out because she's been around in most of these struggles that I'm talking about here in Philadelphia. So thanks for being there, Megan. Africatown, and where you are, you're in what we call South Philadelphia. Africatown is south and west further west to my right. And in this area, as I said, we have hundreds of thousands of African and Caribbean immigrants. They already live there. They've lived there. They invested in the community. They have bought homes. They've invested in businesses without any help from the city or anybody for over these years. I'm telling you, billions of dollars that they have invested. So we're fortunate to have an organization by the name of the African Cultural Alliance of North America, founded by my good friend and partner, Mr. Vovi Jebete from Liberia. Over 25 years ago, he's been working in that community by providing immigration services, health care, even working with senior citizens and all in that areas. But the idea of the Africa Town, it was created by the people who were there. I mean, it wasn't any magic that we brought up. It was over 100,000 people living in the community. 85% of them are African and Caribbean, and many of them African American. So the community was predominantly what it is. But what we did is a little different. We branded it Africa Town. People say, you had the audacity to do that. Yeah, we had the audacity to do it. There's about 100,000 people living here from Africa. We said, yeah, it's Africa Town. Unfortunately, we had the great insight of the press, the foreign press. If you go to BBC and France 24, international people come in and they branded it Little Africa, so we said Africa Town, and it was work. So we get blamed for it, but we'll take that. It's good stuff. But the Africa Town opportunity is for us a time for us to keep gentrifiers out. And we have to come together, and most of us has decided we're not going to let people come in and gentrify us out of our community. Let's take a foothold, make a foothold here, and we're going to gentrify them out. We're going to keep them from coming in and taking over our community. And so far, it's been very good, not without difficulty, but it's been very good. We see along the commercial corridors, I've already pointed out, from Baltimore Avenue south to Chester Avenue, Woodland Avenue, Elmwood. There's over 700 African and Caribbean businesses along those corridors, over 700. And they have not, until recently, until the last 5 years, began receiving financing resources, COVID relief funds to help them build and expand their businesses and also buy the buildings that some of them are in. We just broke ground with Akana in the lead, and the African Caribbean Business Council of Greater Philadelphia. We just broke ground in November for our first brand new building, which is called the African Center at 54th and Chester. I'm giving you these because as you're strolling around, if Will and Dr. Avery and them let you stroll around a little bit, you can walk to some of these places, But the first building, it's a $16 million building at 54th and Chester that we're breaking ground for. It's the African Center, a multi-service opportunity. We'll have a full-service medical clinic in it, a daycare program, offices and professional offices, and even we've gotten such notoriety that even our political leaders are putting offices in our buildings as we construct them, which is a good tactic going forward. The next building we will do, as important as it is, we will have an African and Caribbean Performing Arts Center. Almost any place in this city you can find the rich and diverse culture of our many, many African and Caribbean organizations being performed at some place along these commercial corridors in our city. One of the rich attractions of Philadelphia is its diversity, and even though Philadelphia is the birth of this nation and the founding place of this nation, we still don't have enough outreach to have people to come and understand what we're doing. But for Philadelphia, tourism is a $10.3 billion industry. It employs 80,000 people a year, and we got it. I mean, we have it all. You can go to performing arts, you can go to the African American Museum, you can go see Marian Anderson's house, you can see Paul Robeson, you can go to Chinatown, you can go to the Italian Village, you can go to Reading Terminal. We even have a neighborhood in Philadelphia. So why not Africa Town? A tourist destination point for the global African diaspora to come to Philadelphia to enjoy the rich culture, the food, the shopping, and we have the two oldest HBCUs in the United States of America, Lincoln, Cheney University and Lincoln University, right here. Some of the greatest leaders of our time went to these universities. And so we are looking at bringing all that together, including trade. One of our earlier speakers talked about Ghana and cocoa. Well, over 80% of the cocoa beans in the world come from Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. The cocoa industry, manufacturing industry, is in Europe and Philadelphia, and in we don't grow one cocoa bean in the entire United States of America and the continent, and yet we have one company, Hershey. You could almost walk there from here. It's a city called Hershey, Pennsylvania, and it's a $14 billion industry. And I'm constantly engaged in the problems of cocoa producers and the fact that they're not being compensated enough for the work of their raw product that creates this wealth for everything else. So we're trying to bring the trading aspect of Africa in general, West Africa in particular, to Philadelphia. And our port, the cocoa beans makes our port in Philadelphia. We are the largest port of importation of cocoa beans in the entire United States of America, the largest. Philadelphia Port Authority is. So our opportunity to bring arts and culture, trade, we have, if you hear this wonderful campus, and but if you leave this campus and go to where I'm talking about at Africatown, you will not see not one innovation technology center at all. You can leave, you can see all this beauty here. I don't even think we got 10% of the students that are black and brown on the campus of the entire United States, University of Pennsylvania. But when you leave here and walk west, you're probably going to what some people call a ghetto. We don't see it as a ghetto. We see it with a wealth of knowledge, skills, and enhancement, and we have to take the rest of the resources there. So the third project will have an innovation technology hub in the black community. Why should we have to suffer the lack of access to this technology in the digital community and not just put it there? It's not a fight. We're just going to put it there. We're going to build it just like everybody else builds, just like you can build it on the campus of the University of Pennsylvania. So the technology hub will expose our children at the earliest age possible to the digital community, the education process, and we'll have it right there. As I said, we're very close to closing on many of these projects, but let me end by saying this. Without the cooperation and collaboration of everybody, some I even holler and curse at times, but they all come around eventually. And I think with the good of, with our good intent and the great knowledge that all of you professionals have, and really the opportunity to see good, I just can't continue to walk around the world and have people not see the deprivation, the starvation, and the suffering that our people have to go through just to be here. And many, many people, I've been in over 25 different countries, and it pains me to go sometime, even though I enjoy the travel and going out. But we cannot stop and continue to watch our people suffer. It will change, and we need people like you to help us change it. So thank you all for being here, and let me go.
So I'm not only Richards, but I'm here just to speak in her place. We do work together. I just have one slide to show. It'll be very brief, and then we'll have Andre Coles come up and talk about wellness. We'll go right into our panel discussion, and after that, we'll take a break. So, because I know we need a second to get up and stretch and refill coffee and get some more carbs. Okay. Okay, so that may be hard to see, but maybe they can put it on the screen in front of me also, if that's possible. If not, that's fine. So what I wanted to show here was just to build on what Stan had said. So we have a group called the Campus Project. Actually stands for Community Partnerships to Advance Science for Society Highlights. And within Philadelphia, we have a group of all the community organizations, like you mentioned, Africatown, Afano, Akano, Fox Chase, University of Pennsylvania, and there are a number of different programs. So the idea of this campus project is that it would be a 10-year project, and where we want to really develop what's needed for West Philadelphia. One important thing that's needed is cultural competency. Many times people will go to the physician and they may ask a question, or they may be diagnosed, or they may be examined, but based on language or the color of their skin, they may not actually be able to diagnose them properly, or even the physician needs to be able to communicate with the patient. And so one of the aims of it is that we want to educate the physician on how to talk to the community, and the community to how to talk with the physician in order to increase those lines of communication to get the best outcome. And also we want to build up more in the local communities. We had talked about some of the C4, and we also had submitted a grant called E-Access, where we would put actual kiosks in the community, in the neighborhood. So that's a way for them to interact with the physician, which is telehealth, and also a way for them to, if there are clinical trials that are coming up. But we feel like that these things should happen in the community where people feel comfortable, don't feel threatened, where they can interact with each other, where there's a level of trust in the community. So that's kind of the idea, but I just wanted to keep it brief, and we can talk more during the panel. So I'll introduce Andre.
Yes, please.
So next we'll bring up Andre Coles, who will talk about wellness, which is another important factor, especially with the state of the world today. I think we all could use some stress relievers and other things. So I think they should load your talk.
All right. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Do I push the button here? Or what's going on? All right, well, we'll get started. So I'm just like not standing up here. I'm just waiting. There we go. We're working here. There it is. Yep. Fantastic. Yeah, go ahead and hit cool. Great. So it's on the screen? Okay, great. How do I advance here? Hit the green one? Got you. All right, so my name is Andre Coles. I run an organization called Roots to Rise. That's me. I'm the executive director as well as a yoga instructor, 200 hours. That's a picture of me teaching one of our community classes at Penny Pack on the Delaware in Northeast Philly. What is Roots to Rise? Roots to Rise is a Philadelphia-based 501c3 nonprofit. Our mission as an organization is to make the practice of yoga, meditation, and mindfulness accessible to everyone, all ages and abilities and income levels. We make yoga accessible by providing free and low-cost yoga classes to the community, often in economically disadvantaged areas where wellness options are not available. We teach programming in spaces that are both communal and familiar, rec centers, libraries, community centers, things of that nature. What is yoga? Yoga is the physical practice of moving our bodies. What is meditation and mindfulness? Meditation is the awareness of nothing. Mindfulness is the awareness of something. We use those three things to create a sense of mind and body awareness. The benefits of yoga, meditation, and mindfulness for everyone. Yoga has many known benefits, more commonly known for its ability to ease stress and anxiety, which helps improve quality of life and mental health. Meditation helps us clear away information overload that can contribute to overall stress levels. Mindfulness has been shown to improve well-being, supporting many attitudes that contribute to a satisfied life. Some lists of mental health benefits: self-regulation, mindfulness, reduction of stress, increased self-esteem, and physical health benefits, overall physical conditioning, energy level, and increased athletic performance. So even if you're, not flexible, which a lot of my students say, we can improve that, with some time in our classes. We offer community classes. By offering classes in neighborhoods where people live and work, we facilitate neighbors meeting neighbors in common positive activity with the goal of fostering relationships and positive outcomes for the community. We work in Philadelphia park and recreation facilities, local public library branches, and in coordination with other nonprofits. In the summer, we teach local parks and other public spaces. So in the summer, we move outside. We've partnered with shelters, community centers, hospitals, business service organizations, and parks and recreational facilities across the region to offer yoga and mindfulness to anyone who wants to attend a class, facilitating over 1,500 classes with over 14,000 participants since 2015. This is a sense of our community class schedule. This is our spring schedule. Mondays, we're at Lutheran Settlement House in Fishtown. We're also at Hillside Recreation Center in Manioc. Tuesdays, we're at Pennypack on the Delaware in Northeast Philadelphia. Wednesdays, we're in West Philly at Sarah Morris Recreation Center. We're at Aubrey Recreation Center in Germantown. And then also on Thursdays, we do our Breathe class, which is a virtual yoga class specifically for the BIPOC community, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. That's at 7 p.m. And Saturdays, we're also in West Philly at Cobbs Creek Recreation Center. I had to cancel that class so I could be here tonight. So this is just a shot of one of our community classes at Cobbs Creek Rec Center. Our community class at Sarah Morris Recreation Center. Our community class at Lutheran Settlement House in Fishtown. Our community class at Pennypack on the Delaware in the Northeast. Our chair yoga class, we also offer chair and gentle yoga classes for seniors. That's our chair yoga class at Mount Carmel Baptist Church in West Philly. Our student retreat at Widener University. Our community class at Dobbins Technical High School in North Philly. And our Here to Be fundraising event at the Fillmore that we did in August of 2017. We are well positioned to collaborate. We're very open and very excited to talk to everybody. We have an infrastructure in place where we can either help folks come into the classes that we already have, or we're able to do private classes for those who want them. All right, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Andre. So please let us give all the presenters one big round of applause. And at this time, we will transition quickly into a panel discussion, and I just want to invite the moderator of the panel, Heather Kluseritz, to come forward. Let us welcome Heather as she comes forward.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, if that's the time where you are today watching us. I'm Heather Klusaritz. It is a privilege to be with all of you here today. I am the Director of Community Health Services for the Penn Medicine Center for Health Equity Advancement, as well as the Director of the Community Health Division for the Department of Family Medicine and Community Health. I also hold roles in our Masters of Public Health program here at the university and our Center for Public Health. And I wanted to start our panel discussion by first taking a moment to say thank you to the religious organizations around the globe, here in the United States, and locally here in Philadelphia. And it was really Reverend Williams' talk that reminded me of the strength and the importance of collaboration between healthcare and religious organizations in helping us to achieve our public health goals. And I say that because one of my roles at Penn Medicine has been to lead our community-based COVID vaccine delivery. And it would have been impossible to deliver the tens of thousands of vaccines that we have been able to deliver without our faith-based partners. First African Presbyterian Church, the Church of Christian Compassion, Mount Carmel Baptist Church, Bethany Baptist Church, Mount Zion Baptist Church, the Philadelphia Masjid, Akana, Christ Community Church. I could go on and on. Our pastors, our imams, our faith-based leaders have been the ones who have enabled our success in achieving our public health goals and in vaccinating our population. And we have not done enough here in Philadelphia, and in the United States to express our gratitude to our faith-based leaders. We would not have been able to achieve what we have achieved to date without their support. And I think it's a perfect example of the power of that collaboration that many of our panelists have spoken about today. So thank you. I wanted to start our panel discussion by asking our panel members to talk about future opportunities for collaboration between religious organizations and healthcare. And Reverend Williams, perhaps if I may start with you, and then please others do weigh in. But you told us a little bit about some of the collaborations in your church. But what do you think are opportunities for us to go further together?
I think there are multiple opportunities to go further. And I just want to go back to that concept of immersion and really immersing yourself in the community and the needs of the community. And a part of that immersion is to get into the community and not try to change it at first, but just to look to see what's going on. At the Church of the Good Shepherd, we have a dynamic health and wellness ministry led by Mrs. Loretta Battis, and they are doing strategic planning now for the next couple of years. So currently we do health moments on Sunday, the other items that we spoke about, but one of the things that they're looking at now is to incorporate more movement into the church. We have a walking club, but we want to take some of our space and actually change it or turn it into a physical fitness center where we have the machines in church. We're working now with a fitness person who comes in every so often, but we want that as an active area. We're also looking at things around our youth in terms of learning goals, not only STEM, of course STEM, but we're looking at incorporating the arts as well in terms of health and health literacy. So that is a great opportunity if anyone wants to come in and teach health literacy, or if you want to put a health literacy program there, that incorporates the arts because we understand people learn in different ways. So we want everyone to understand health in a way that they can comprehend it. And so those are some of the things that we're looking at in terms of moving forward.
Thank you. Any of our other panelists? Yes, please, Mr. Strader.
I just want to quickly point out that in Africa Town and also throughout the city, we have a fantastic growth of Islam and Muslim communities. So we have a number of very enlightened leadership in the Muslim community here in Philadelphia, and almost in every mosque now we were joining through either the African Family Health Organization, ACANA, or other organizations to provide health care inside the mosque. And so even though the men and women are still separated, the opportunity to expand education and outreach in healthcare is just phenomenal, the work that they're doing inside this mosque, number one. Now, number two, we still have many people that come to our organizations of Fowl Healthcare and ACANA that don't speak English yet and still struggling with local languages. And so these, in collaboration with the mosque and the imams, we're able to provide education, healthcare education and outreach. Part of the tragedy is that even in our own advanced healthcare, I call it advanced, so it's still in the medieval ages in some way, we still have people, young women in our community that are still suffering from female genital cutting and kind of things. So much of us in our healthcare areas here haven't made that cultural sensitivity transition to understand what's going on. So we have language barriers, we still have cultural barriers, even in Philadelphia today. And I think working with the imams and the various mosques, we've been able to enlighten people both in the system, healthcare system here in Philadelphia, about how and those things are created. I want to thank many of the community organizations that we're working with that received that. And look, I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Just to add on what my colleague said, I just want to say, as part of the survey that we did, every time we'd ask something relating to how faith informed a medical decision, it was always a high percentage. So you think about prayer, you have 80% saying prayer is very important. Consulting with my pastor is very important to my medical decision. So I think there is a great opportunity for collaboration. And I think for medical professionals, what's important is to try to rethink ways in which you can collaborate, especially with ethnic minority communities where there is trust within religious organizations.
Thank you. You all have highlighted for us the importance of faith-based organizations as the center of communities, as places where people feel comfortable and trust going to receive a host of services, not just for religious purposes. And I've had the opportunity for about 25 years now here in Philadelphia to work with various faith-based organizations to deliver all sorts of health programming. One of our panelists who couldn't be here tonight or this afternoon, Dr. Mike Beers, was going to speak to us about an organization in Philadelphia called the United Community Clinic, which was started at the First African Presbyterian Church over 25 years ago. And it has been serving as a clinical space for the surrounding community because it was where that community wanted to go and receive care, and it was a way that we were able to eliminate barriers of trust and geography, many of the things that we heard about earlier in your data. I'm wondering if our panelists can tell us of sort of shining examples of delivering health care in faith-based places. We heard about your church, but are there other examples of actually delivering health care in faith-based organizations that are ones that you want to shine a light on for us?
I'll just give one or two examples from Cameroon. During the period of COVID, some of the vaccinations took place around the churches, so that when people gathered for worship on their way out, they could receive vaccination. The same goes for HIV/AIDS testing. The churches opened their doors and received the testing. And there were many things like blood donors, where the churches were also prepared to receive those who came from the hospital to draw blood. So the churches facilitated the possibility, and that was, again, collaboration. There are many other areas, but I just mentioned those.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I want to bring to your attention another example. In 2007, 2008, there was a church in Ewing, New Jersey, Higher Ground Interdenominational Church, that actually had a doctor's office in the church. And they, after service every Sunday, people were invited to see the doctor at no cost, no charge. And they did wonderful jobs in terms of collaboration because they actually brought the labs in to do the lab work. So if the lab work was done on site at the church, you could get the lab work done on a sliding fee scale. The physician was there, and on Thursdays, once a month, they had a health night. And that was a wonderful initiative that I was a part of. And one of the challenges was sustainability in terms of the rising cost. And so as we're moving forward at the Church of the Good Shepherd, we understand the importance of the collaboration in terms of sustainability and the cost associated with it, because it is a very expensive proposition when you have physicians delivering health care at no cost to the community. Thank you. And I'm Reverend Dr. Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you. Others who, yes, please.
Yeah, I would like to come back to the example I briefly mentioned in my presentation this morning. Yesterday we talked about using plants for treatment, cannabis, for example. And I made mention that in various parts of Africa we have used what we call natural medicine to improve health care, primary health care, where there is no doctor, where there are no clinics, far away on the countryside. And we discovered that And that's why I made mention of the importance of religious factors in development cooperation. That is, you can't just come and say, use this moringa tree and use the leaves to improve your nutrition, but they will say, oh, but these leaves, I mean, the power that is in those leaves, this comes from spirits that live in those plants, or the artemisia, or any other thing. So, and we realized that the knowledge had also been lost because those people who became either Christians or Muslims, they said, we want to do away with these old traditional beliefs, and together with those beliefs, they also did away with all the knowledge. So we had to rediscover that, or in a way also to reopen it and reframe it. You say, look, if you use the moringa tree, if you use artemisia to prevent your child from malaria, then you're not coming back to worship to those old spirits, but you reframe it in the context of the particular social and religious context. So if it's an Islamic community or if it's a Christian Muslim community, it will differ. But for example, for a Christian community, we would say, look, these plants have been created by God and Jesus is the healer. So we use the healing powers that God has created and we use them to develop our communities. And then we could introduce all those different ways of natural medicine. And through our partners, through the churches, they spread out very fast and very quickly to places where no NGO or whatever from outside could ever reach, and to a credibility and sustainability that no NGO could ever achieve. But now these things are present in the communities. Many families have moringa bushes around their houses. They use it during their breakfast, or they cook artemisia tea to prevent their children from getting malaria, or it even helps to strengthen the immune system when you are infected with HIV. So, but you have to be aware, you have to sensitize yourself when you do professional development cooperation for those religious factors that are in the context that you're working in. And when we are in the global south, you cannot, as a professional, no matter what your own belief is, but you cannot ignore those religious factors in your cooperation, but we have to professionally include them. And this is what we stand for as Mission 21.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Kwan.
One of the shining examples from Roots to Rise is our Breathe program. We started it around the time of the George Floyd incident and the protests and things like that. And the concept was sort of like, in a world where people are working to take your breath away, here is a place where you can actually come and breathe and practice. So regardless of, religious backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, sexuality, gender, it was a place for everybody to come together. And it's still continuing till today. We have about 20 people that come to our classes, which is just a place virtual from all over the world at this point. So it's just a place for people to come and breathe and be as well as they can be.
Thank you all for telling us about these wonderful examples of ways in which our religious organizations are advancing health of communities. Dr. Reverend Wilson, you raised sustainability challenges that we face. And Mr. Schroeder, I know that you've been working for a long time fighting against those challenges to sustainability for health initiatives here in Philadelphia. I'd like to ask the panel to talk about examples when you have come up against sustainability challenges and how you've been able to overcome them in the work that you do, whether that is a financial challenge to sustainability, a political challenge to sustainability, a cultural one. Examples of when you've come up against those challenges to sustaining the work that you do, and help our audience think about how they might meet those challenges and be able to further their work.
Wanna go?
I think one of the key areas is sustainability. And let me just back up. When we hear sustainability, we often think about the finances. But one of the key areas is the human resources. So ensuring that whatever you do in your program, you are mentoring other people, you are coaching people, you're doing succession planning so that as people age out or retire or decide they want to do something else, when they leave, they don't take institutional knowledge. And that's one of the challenges of the church, because the church in the West is an aging church. Many people are not going to church. So one of the things that we're doing is ensuring that we try to bring young people in and teach them what we're doing and teach them in a way that they understand it. Especially with our programming, we're not looking to bring people in so they can come to Jesus. We bring people in who want to work on the issues. So if they're interested in healthcare, they can work with us in our programming because we have a mission, and the mission is beyond our belief system. And ultimately, if what we believe is what we believe it is, they'll want to join. But if it's not, they'll do the work, you know? But the work is making sure people at this point get the health care they need. So I think that human resource is critical. And then in terms of fiscal resources, from a nonprofit management point of view, you know, you just need multiple sources of income. People get grants and they want to rely on one grant. Well, you get the grant and you use that as the seed, and then you start developing other areas of income so that you're not dependent on a grant. We chase grant to grant to grant. That's not the way to be sustainable. The way to be sustainable is to think of what is the business that we can do here? How do we generate income so that we can then continue to do what it is that we are called to do?
Thank you. I really like that reminder of investing in the human resources and how important that is.
Also, in our area, we have to be intentional, and for our audience here, with all those skills you have, I would really suggest that as you look at needs, as the Reverend just pointed out, you need to look at how the skill sets exist in the organization. For instance, take a Kana or African Family Health Organization. They come out of the heartfelt desire that we need to do something for the community. No money, just Vofi Jabate, the founder of Akana, was a social worker for Philadelphia and said, oh, we're not doing enough, and he left 25 years ago to start the organization. So he started from zero, and now it's a multi-million-dollar organization. But inside that organization, we had to get skills, as you talked about, in accounting, finance, because it's not enough to save your brothers and sisters. If you don't have a running organization, nobody's going to give you a grant. They're not even going to look at it because the first thing they'll say, well, what is the capacity to serve, and then the sustainability. So one of the things we've been able to do with the Mayor's Commission on African Caribbean Immigrant Affairs is to create a fund in collaboration with the City of Philadelphia and in the United Fund of this $400,000 I mentioned earlier to help build capacity in these developing organizations so they can develop sustainable programs. And the unique thing about it is that not only are you helping them build it, but you're helping them to see, without lecturing them and dictating to them, helping them see why they need to build capacity. And while the love of our community and the serve is important, we have to build skill sets to help maintain the organization itself. I mentioned earlier the Sudanese organization here in Philadelphia. They built $1 million building. They went to all of the members to raise the money after they were able to get the building to redevelop a building. So it's there, the resources is there in our community to help sustain and build capacity. The other thing that I didn't mention that we'll probably get to is out of the building sustainable organizations here that's serving the various communities here, many of these organizations have gone on to do work in their home country. You may be familiar with, I know people at Penn are familiar with the the Liberian Medical Mission. Mr. Joe Sacco is doing thing. I know that Global Health with Steve and them are doing things overseas. We have the Ethiopian medical program and the Ethiopian mental health program. So all of our communities have gone on to do work here and to do work in their home country. I think we have a group of Sudanese doctors now in Sudan coming from our area around the country. So it built, if you can lay that seed, it helped build the need to build a sustainable institution. And the resources, you continue to work for those resources. I don't think any of them are easy to get, but it's an opportunity to have professionals like you, and I continue to point on you because there's other things that you could do to help build the organization from the inside out. Even if it's training to help in LaSalle and also at Penn here, they have courses in how to help build good not-for-profit organizations, and I advocate going to them once the people say, oh, they don't want to give me any money, but let me see why you're not going to get any money and try to help you through this. So there's many organizations around that can help build from the inside out, but I think the hard work is helping to build and work with those people like you that have invested so much in saving our people. We now have to help you to do it and build a sustainable institution. So that's my 2 cents on that piece.
Thank you. Yes, please.
This is a very difficult one for our church and other churches in Cameroon, and also for the patients who go to the health units. If you come to our country in Cameroon, you'll notice that some of the earliest health units were built in difficult areas, in rural areas, because it was considered that these people had no other help, even though we know that they could heal with leaves and other properties. But sometimes the people didn't have the money to pay for the treatments, but they had very difficult health problems. So the church health units sometimes treated the people before asking for anything to be paid. And where they couldn't pay at all, in the early stages, a special fund was set aside for those destitute people. Then we began to see that there were also, as the cities developed, we also saw that there were destitute people in the cities. That's when our health units began to move into the towns. Then the churches developed a system of getting people pay sometimes according to their capabilities. Those who were more viable paid more, and the poorer people paid less because they couldn't afford. That's why I say it is a difficult situation for both the churches who had the health units and the patients who couldn't pay. Mm-hmm. In both cases, it was not easy to find a balance, but the churches tried to do what they could.
Thank you. Yes, Reverend Kirsch.
Yeah.
On the one level, we could say sustainability is not a problem for Mission 21 because we're working for more than 200 years, and we're working with partners that are already on the ground. They are there before the problem starts, and they will be there after it has ended. So on that level, it is not an issue. But how do you enable sustainable program management? Mm-hmm. And to me, the key is ownership. That the churches as actors in their context, or faith-based, or it could also be Muslim communities, they themselves, they identify what are the burning issues for us as a society. What is really troubling us? And then once they identify those issues, our way to go about is to include it into theological education and say, okay, what does your faith say about these things? I'm taking the example of HIV. It is still a big challenge in sub-Saharan Africa. When it came up and when there was still no PEPFAR or anything like that, we brought our church partners together in sub-Saharan Africa from different countries, because we also consider ourselves as a learning community where we exchange. And those churches came together in sub-Saharan Africa. They developed together a concept. In what way does HIV actually, how do we see HIV and AIDS? And they realized that those claims that came from also certain Christian churches to say, oh, AIDS is a punishment from God for sinful behavior and things like that. They said, this is not true, because those people who are most affected and infected are actually, to say it in Christian terms, as those parts of the body that are least protected by us as a society, as churches, as communities. So what we need to do is to strengthen our immune system as a social body, strengthen the immune system of our communities by going for gender justice, empowering young girls to have more say about their bodies, their sexual rights, children, widows, those who have least rights in society. We need to, as churches, our mission is to strengthen the rights of those parts of our society. And that is a completely different approach than we had from some of those evangelical churches, and also it's different from just bringing in drugs. But it's starting at and this is why it's still sustainable. Later the drugs came in, but the first thing is that those communities, they were strengthened, they created self-help groups. People who were affected were not pushed to some chicken shed somewhere and around the villages as it was in the beginning, but they were brought to the center. They were integrated into the community. And even if there was no cure at the time, the community was there to care for them. Then they started themselves to create self-help groups, to start farming on acres to create new income. And then when drugs came in, it helped. But it was a bottom-up approach, and that is, to me, the key to sustainable development, and that is how we as Mission 21 operate.